What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I hope everyone is keeping wonderfully well on this very beautiful Thursday. We're here to preview this weekend's action in the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. As we very well know, the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship commences this weekend. It starts this weekend. We have the Leinster round robin, which commences. We have the Munster round robin, which starts as well. And we'll also be looking at 3 games taking place in the Joe McDonagh as well. So 9 games to break through. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We do plenty of hurling content, football content, and there will be a ladies football championship predictions and preview that will be out a little bit later on next week as well. We're going to be predicting the entirety of that championship as well. So if you enjoy the content around here, consider subscribing. It would be very, very much appreciated. And yeah, it is just myself today for today's preview. So you'll have to bear with me for that. But here we go. Here we go then. And I suppose we'll start by looking at the Leinster Championship. And 3 games, obviously, probably the Munster Championship is the more significant, you would say, in terms of the games that are on there compared with the games in the Leinster Championship. But, you know, we'll get the Leinster Championship over and done with first. We'll run through these games and then we'll go from there. Antrim versus Dublin, of course, is on Saturday in Corrigan Park. Look, as a Dublin fan, I have to say this is a tricky fixture, in my opinion, from a Dublin perspective, because Antrim are a decent team. You know, they are a decent team, and they've come on leaps and bounds in hurling in the last 4 to 5 years. And making that trip to Corrigan Park, it's always a difficult place to go to. We've seen teams down the years go there and struggle. Most notably Clare. I think a lot of people have mentioned this game by now. Antrim beating Clare in the National Hurling League. I think 2-3 years ago. I think 2021. I think it was. And it's just a tough place to go. And I think it's a real banana skin type game for Dublin, in my opinion. And like, when you look at Dublin so far this year, when you look at Micheál Donoghue, who's obviously come in, you know, I think there's been some good moments there. I think there's been, you know, not so good moments. I think we are very much I think when you look at Dublin hurling in the last sort of 10 years or so, where we obviously won that Leinster title in 2013, but I think since then we've kept a lot of them lads around. We've been piggybacking off that success. Whereas now I think it's a different Dublin. You know, there's new lads that have come into the side, the likes of Alex Considine, the likes of Dara Purcell. You know, we really need to start getting the best out of Ronan Hayes. I've been saying that for a couple of years, the man on screen there, because I think he's a sensational hurler when he gets going. And we've seen him time and time again shoot the lights out for Kilmacud Crokes. But from an Antrim perspective, look, they're a very good side as well. And, you know, the likes of Conal Cunning, James McNaughton have been very good there. And I think Antrim, you know, at home, like, it will be a sticky game for Dublin. And I think as well, you know, Antrim at the start of the year, when they got their fixture list, they would have targeted certain games and thought, we can get something from this. Maybe we can get something from this. Obviously, they're looking at the Westmeath game as a prime example. It's probably going to be the side, you know, they're probably going to be the 2 sides battling for relegation. But I'm sure Antrim would have looked at it. First game of the championship at home to Dublin. You know, it's a sticky game from a Dublin perspective, in my opinion. And it's certainly not a guarantee that we come out of it with a win. Keane says here, Dublin v Antrim in the league was a tight affair, but Dublin should have enough to get the win. And yeah, I think that's what I will go. I will back my own county, I think, by 5 or 6 points. It is worth pointing out as well, actually, Dublin last year in the Leinster round robin actually finished level on points with Galway, Wexford and Kilkenny. All 4 sides finished level with 6 points, I think it was. But Dublin missed out on score difference. You know, so if you think about it, if Dublin's score difference was that bit better, we actually would have played in a Leinster final. So that's why not only do Dublin need to win this game, but I think they need to put up a bit of a score as well and win it by 6-7, possibly even more. But I think all in all, a win would be a good start here. It's the first game, tricky game away. Might be a bit of a tricky game nonetheless. Tescase says Cork problems. A downfall. Westmeath v Antrim relegation playoff. Clare should be above Cork. And yeah, there we go. But yeah, obviously no Cork this weekend, in fairness, but we certainly will discuss them when that moment comes next week or whenever they're on next. But yeah, I think Dublin by 4 or 5 points, I think should have enough. Galway versus Wexford. I suppose it is the game of the weekend in terms of the Leinster Championship. If you're to look at the games in the Leinster Championship, you think of when these two met in the Leinster round robin last year. Galway completely blew Wexford away in the first half, had so many opportunities, so many scoring chances, should have put the game to bed, and Wexford came fighting back and in the end clinched a draw. And when you actually look at it, it was a draw that very much in the end seen Wexford go through because they finished on the same amount of points as everyone else in the top four, shall we say. So it's a huge game. And look, as I've said before in my All-Ireland Hurling predictions video, if people haven't seen that, make sure to check that out when you get a chance. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's two sides that, obviously both Dara Egan and Henry Shefflin now going into their second year as management. It's hard to know what level Wexford are at in terms of, they obviously won that Leinster title a couple of years ago. Have they really kicked on since then? Probably not. Did Davy Fitz just get the best out of the squad that he had available to them? Because when you remember, Wexford weren't really at a great level prior to Davy Fitz. I mean, I know they had success in the 90s and 2000s and, everything else. But Wexford Hurling was in a bit of a bad place, really, before Davy Fitz came into the side. So, yeah, like, it's hard to know where Wexford are at. But, I mean, obviously, when we look at the likes of Lee Chin, who's an outstanding hurling, is obviously back from injury now as well. Wexford always look a better side when he's in the side. Cathal Dunbar's look very good. Kevin Foley, very experienced, defender in there as well. So it'll be a tough one, but I think for Henry Shefflin and for Galway in particular, it's a massive, massive match, and it's a game where they have to start with a win, put a marker down, and Galway are probably in a weird conundrum as well, where it's similar again, maybe in some cases to Dublin, to a different extent, where that 2017 crop who won the All-Ireland, like, those players are slowly been phased out. They've been slowly phased out, and you've still got the likes of Daithí Burke, David Burke, Joseph Cooney, sort of in around the side, Conor Whelan as well, but you've got now Evan Noyle and Brian Concannon, and I think that's been the problem for Galway, is trying to find the sort of balance between the more experienced players and the young players and trying to put all the pieces of the jigsaw together. But it's a massive game for Galway at home in Pearse Stadium. I would give them the edge by 2 or 3 points, but as Keane also says here, it could go either way. Seeing that's taking place in Salt Hill, it should swing at the tribesman's way. Yeah, I would think so as well. I think it's a big game for Galway, and I think for Henry Shefflin as well, second season. I think a lot of people expecting Galway to kick on after what probably was a fairly disappointing league as well, in fairness. But yeah, we'll go with Galway to get the victory there, in my opinion. Last but not least, in the Leinster Championship, there's probably not a lot really to discuss here. Kilkenny versus Westmeath. In fairness to Westmeath, I mean, look, they have made great. I mean, have they made progress in the last couple of years? It's hard to know, but they've obviously come up and down from the Joe McDonagh, and they've been in a relegation battle, and it's hard to really know. Like, you feel sorry for counties like Westmeath and Laois in hurling, who are probably too good for the Joe McDonagh, but not good enough for the Leinster round robin. And we're probably just going to keep seeing these scenarios where it's the same teams being promoted and relegated every season. But if Westmeath are going to do that, and it'll probably be Killian Doyle who shoots the lights out there. But I think we can all agree that Kilkenny are far, far too strong. And will we see that man on screen, TJ Reid, back in the Kilkenny side this weekend? That will be interesting to see. Obviously, didn't feature in the league, and as we very well know, he took a bit of an extended break following Ballyhale Shamrocks All-Ireland club win just in January. So, yeah, you would look at it and think here's a time for TJ Reid to come back in. It's a great game to, see how TJ Reid fits in this forward line with the likes of Billy Drennan and Owen Cody. Kilkenny have a lot of great hurlers, and like you're looking at it, Kilkenny at home, you're probably talking between 20 to 25 point victory, and that's you don't want to be disrespectful to Westmeath, but I think that's just a level, unfortunately, that Kilkenny, we're talking about Kilkenny, one of the best teams in the country. Westmeath are unfortunately stuck between Joe McDonagh and Leinster Championship, and will most likely be in a relegation battle. I know Westmeath did make a bit of progress last year, drawing with Wexford, put it up to the Dubs and everything else, but I think it, far too comfortable here for Kilkenny, and I think it will be 20-25 plus in my opinion. Test Case says here, Wexford had a great year in 2019. They nearly reached an All-Ireland final, narrow to Tipperary. Yeah, and that probably was Wexford's moment, wasn't it? Tipperary as well went down to 14 men, I think, in that game, from what I remember. Or was it Wexford that went down to 14 men? I think it might have been, actually. But it was one of those games that, could have went either way. And when you think about it, Tipperary went on to win the All-Ireland, beating Kilkenny that year. Like, I think if Wexford had to beat Tipperary, I think they would have went on to win the All-Ireland. So, it's probably one of them that unfortunately got away from Wexford. But yeah, we'll go with Kilkenny. I think 20-25 plus there in my opinion. Moving on, then we do have the Munster round robin, which, as I've said before in the predictions, I think the Munster round robin is obviously where it's at. It's where the most exciting games are, and Clare versus Tipperary this weekend has the makings of a huge game. Like, when you think about it, I think we all have Limerick very much to come through Munster and probably win the Munster Championship, probably win the All-Ireland as well, in fairness. But I think this game is massive for either side, because the chance to get 2 points on the board, the chance to beat a side that's, I think we look at either one of these two to possibly be the ones that will be in the Munster final. Like, I predicted Tipperary to finish second, Clare to finish third, Limerick to finish first. So when you look at it, the winner, whoever comes out of this game, is likely to possibly, go on and reach the Munster final. Looking at the Clare side, I mean, Tony Kelly, as we know, is one of the best hurlers on his day. And I think he would be very interested to see how he gets on against this Tipperary defence and what type of plan Liam Cahill comes up with to try and stop the influence of this man. But in fairness to Clare, like they showed last year, they're more than just the Tony Kelly show. Mark Rogers, very good young up-and-coming hurler. Aidan McCarthy, very good hurler, back in the side as well. Peter Duggan, Cathal Malone, Aaron Shanahan, like a lot of very good options, in fairness to Clare. But look, Tipperary looks very strong in the league, and you certainly can't discount that. I mean, Tipperary under Liam Cahill now, in fairness, have look like they've really gotten their act together, and there seems to be a real sort of rejuvenation around Tipp hurling at this moment in time. And they still have some of the older guard around, and Noel McGrath, Shamie Callan, but it has been the younger lads, the likes of Conor Bowe, obviously Gerard O'Connor as well, who's looked very impressive. Jake Morris, Jason Ford, who are probably two of the most consistent hurlers for Tipperary in the last couple of years. So it's an extremely hard game to call. It's one of those games that probably could go either way. Like, Clare didn't look that great in the league, but then again, they didn't look that great in the league last year, and they were flying in the Munster round robin. Tipperary looked like they probably had more work done in the league and are probably coming into this game possibly a bit sharper and a bit fresher, but at the same time, you would not discount Clare. And I wrote this down as a draw, and maybe that's sitting on the fence, but the honest answer is I think it's so hard to call. I think Clare being at home in Ennis would maybe give them the slight advantage. And as I said, the players that they have more ways to probably hurt Tipperary than Tipperary do to hurt Clare. But I just like the look of Liam Cahill and Tipperary, and I think they're going to be bang up for it. I really do. I think they're going to be seriously up for it. But it's a very hard one to call, in fairness. David Fitzgerald. Yeah, in fairness, David Fitzgerald in around midfield as well has been very, very good for Clare as well. I think he was probably one of the most underrated players actually last year. So yeah, never seen Tony Kelly this year. Yeah, I think he was just very much being rested, obviously going into the championship, and we would expect him to be back fit and firing for this game at the weekend. But yeah, in terms of a prediction, then I think I'm going to edge towards a draw. I think the winner of this, though, probably goes on and reaches a Munster final. I mean, that's not a given some of the sides that are in here, but it's a huge, like every win is nearly going to feel like 2 wins because of the teams that are in here. And you know, you're taking 2 points for yourself, but you're also taking 2 points away from the opposition. So, you know, these games are worth so much in fairness. But yeah, I'm going to edge towards a draw. The other game then in Munster, and I suppose the last game, obviously Cork, I suppose the odd ones out for this week, obviously sitting this week out. So Waterford versus Limerick, the All-Ireland champions, making the trip to Thurles as it is, with the fact that Walsh Park is under construction. Can the All-Ireland champions be beat? Can Davy Fitz produce a bit of a miracle versus Limerick? As I've said before, like, I'm a big fan of Davy Fitz. I'm a big admirer. But to be honest with you, it hasn't really probably fully clicked into gear just yet for Davy Fitz and for Waterford. Like, it just hasn't been there so far. And like, I'm hearing Austin Gleeson's injured for this game as well. You know, the fact it's in Thurles as well. Like, I think if it's in Walsh Park, maybe you look at it and think Waterford have a bit of an advantage there with it being at home, but it's in a neutral stadium. It's going to suit Limerick down to the ground. And, you know, the problem, like, you know, if this game was around last year, you would have said, what an opportunity for Waterford. Limerick looked a little bit flat in the league. You know, is their sharpness going to be there? Everything else. But look, Limerick were sensational, absolutely sensational in that league. And, you know, you have your mainstays and you have your, you know, hurlers of the year and Keane Lynch and Jeremy Burns, Gerard Hegarty, Aaron Gallan. But you've got this other crop of players now who've made the breakthrough. Dunica O'Dowling, Micheál Houlihan, Cathal O'Neill. Cathal O'Neill, to be fair, was, you know, made more of a breakthrough last year. You've got Shane O'Brien as well. You know, some of those lads mightn't even play for Limerick this year in the championship, you know, like, because Limerick just have so many options all across their panel. And as we've seen last year, like, even when Keane Lynch was injured, they had options and they had players to come in. And I just think Limerick, you know, whatever Waterford throw at them, whatever plan Davy Fitz comes up with to try and win this game, Limerick will find an answer. They will find an answer. It is interesting seeing Davy Fitz come up against Limerick, because I think it's actually the first time that Davy Fitz as a manager has come up against this version of this Limerick side in a championship game, from what I can recall anyway. Don't think he ever came up against them with Wexford, and I'm not too sure if he ever did with Clare either. Obviously, it was he would have came up against them with Clare, but it was a completely different Limerick side that was around back then compared to today, in fairness. So look, it's going to be interesting to see what plan Davy Fitz comes up with. You know, how many sweepers are in there. You know, you'll imagine they're going to try run it through Limerick, but at the same time, that suits Limerick down to the ground. So I think all in all, I'd go for probably a 6-point win for Limerick. I just think they're far too strong for Waterford. And it's just going to be way too tough to see how Waterford counteract that. Like, they need to get Desi Hutchinson on the ball. They need to get him involved, need to get him in the game. With Austin Gleeson injured, does that mean young Pat Fitzgerald comes into the side? That'll be interesting to see. And Waterford just need one of those games. They need everything to be right. They need everything to go right on the day. Accuracy needs to be above 80%. Puckouts need to be flawless. And they need to hope that Limerick have an off day. But, you know, no evidence. You know, when's the last time Limerick have had an off day? And even when they do have off days, they still tend to win games. So, yeah, I think Limerick for me by 6 points. I think they'll be far too strong. 3 players, Rory Hayes. 3 players worth mentioning: Rory Hayes, Jeremy Ryan, David McInerney. Yeah, it is a fair point. Rory Hayes has been excellent as well for Clare. And that's the thing with Clare, is they do have a wealth of players, and underage seems to be, you know, although they haven't won anything at underage level or anything of that nature, there seems to be players coming through there as well, in fairness. But But there we go. So, yeah, going to go with Limerick, I suppose, ultimately to beat Waterford. Tough start for Waterford. Fact it's in Thurles as well, I think is going to be difficult for them. But who knows? You know, it was only a year ago that we had Waterford as the closest team to beating Limerick. But when you think about it, even the best version of Waterford couldn't beat Limerick. And Limerick have gotten better since then. Waterford have probably regressed. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Limerick to win by 6 points. And unfortunately, there will be no upset for the Daisha this weekend. I suppose we'll look at some Joe McDonagh. This is how the table stands going into this weekend's games. I will be honest, I haven't really seen anything of the Joe McDonagh this year, just seen brief highlights here and there. So the knowledge is certainly not here, but we won't ignore these games anyway. We've got Offaly obviously sitting on top, 2 wins from 2. Carlow have looked quite decent as well so far this year, winning a draw. They're sat there with 3 points. Kerry are sat with 3 points as well, keeping themselves alive with a draw versus Carlow last week. Laois have 1 win from 2 games, and Kildare and Down are both sitting dead last with no points from their opening 2 matches. Kildare versus Kerry, first of all. I suppose if you had predicted this through the league, you know, Kildare were flying through the league, but I think it probably is a classic case of a side going very, very strong in the league, and have they been burnt out a little bit? You know, maybe they have. I thought they looked a lot better against Offaly, in fairness, compared to they were blown away against Carlow. And like, this is one of the games Kildare will look at and think we more than have enough to beat Kerry. You know, Jack Sheridan, outstanding hurler, and he's been very, very good for Kildare in the last couple of years. So it's a tricky one for Kerry. It's a tricky banana skin type game, but Kerry have a knack of pulling out results and, you know, pulling results out of the bag. And Kerry are one of those sides in hurling as well that tend to produce against like your Westmeaths, your Laois, but then at times they can slip up against Down and everything else. So might be a bit of a surprise, but, you know, I fancy Kildare to pull off a bit of a surprise win and turn over the kingdom as it is. And that will be a big, big result for Kildare, and a result that will very much set them on the way to survival and possibly even lend them back in the race to get into the Joe McDonagh Cup final. Carlow versus Laois. I suppose this is a huge, huge game. Carlow sitting on 3 points. Laois sitting on 2 points. I suppose a win here for Carlow, combined with the fact that Offaly are playing down, you know, would all of a sudden leave a bit of a gap. You know, a bit of a gap, and Laois will be, you know, relying on results elsewhere, in fairness. I mean, Laois hit 7 goals versus Down. They absolutely blew them away, relentless. But in fairness to Carlow, like, Carlow have really sort of come on well, you know, this year. Like, a big result against Kildare, a decent draw as well against Kerry, in fairness. You know, that game obviously could have went either way going down the home stretch. You know, you've got Chris Kavanagh or Chris Nolan in there who's looked very good for Carlow, and from what I've seen, like from reading match reports and everything else. But, you know, I think Laois have been so used to playing in the Leinster round robin. Going away to Carlow, I think they more than should have enough, in my opinion, to win this one by 3 or 4 points and firmly put themselves right back into contention to get to the Joe McDonagh Cup final. And last but not least, Offaly versus Down. I think this should be a very comfortable one for Offaly. Down have made a lot of progression in hurling in the last couple of years. Paul Sheehan's a player I always hear of down and down, or up and down, whatever you want to say. But obviously, conceding 7 goals versus Laois, getting beat in the way that they did. It was a massive sign of, you know, it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough for them in the Joe McDonagh this year. It's very hard for them. It's very hard to see how they avoid relegation. In all honesty, it really, really is. But there we go. So yeah, look, I'm going to go for an Offaly win. I think, you know, 6-7 points. Don't think it will be as convincing as what it was when Laois beat Down last week. But yeah, maybe 10 plus. But there we go. We'll go with Offaly to get the victory. So there we have it. There the games, obviously in both Leinster and Munster, and obviously in the Joe McDonagh Cup as well. We won't predict the games in the Laurie Marr, Nicky Rackard, or Christy Ring, because, to be honest with you, I just don't know anything about those games. You know, you never see them on the Sunday game. You know, you never get to see anything about those games, unfortunately. The Joe McDonagh, you get to see the odd game, match reports, but, you know, trying to find out information about Laurie Marr sides, Christie ring. It's just a nightmare. It's very, very disappointing, to be honest with you, because you would love to actually, see how Mayo Hurling are progressing, see how Sligo Hurling are getting on, but it is what it is, and unfortunately, that is the GAA. But there we go. There are the games. There's the action in terms of player of the week, bet of the week. I think player of the week is an interesting one, to be honest with you. I mean, looking at it off the top of my head, I think you look at the Clare Tipperary. I think whoever is player of the week probably comes from that game. Mark Rogers, have been very curious to see how he gets on. Aidan McCarthy. Tempted to go with Aidan McCarthy, to be honest with you, for Clare. I know Tony Kelly's the obvious one. So yeah, we'll go with Aidan McCarthy, player of the week for Clare. Bet of the week. Yeah, I guess Kildare to beat Kerry. I'd imagine Kerry will probably be slight favourites for that one. Maybe that's the bet of the weekend coming from the Joe McDonough. Looking at the championship, putting money either way on Tipperary Clare might go with you, but there we go. Very, very hard to call, in fairness. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Cheers anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button and subscribe if you could. Plenty of match reactions will be out this week as well about football and hurling. There's so much GA on this week. It's absolute madness. But it's great because there'll be so many games to watch, so many games to discuss, and very, very excited to watch it all and break it all down as per usual. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you all soon.